Hi everyone! So, school just started for around 2 weeks and it's been really hectic. It's been really busy, third year, the workload. But I've been trying to find time to keep this book review channel going because this is the main reason why I started this channel in the first place. Although I've been uploading vlogs lately. So, today we'll be reviewing PewDiePie's recommended books. So I've been an inconsistent watcher of PewDiePie's videos on his YouTube channel for quite some time now, and I stumbled across this video, and apparently Felix does book reviews now. Not that this is the new one, because I just realized he has like a whole playlist called PewDiePie Book Club, which I'm gonna put the link down in the description below if you want to check it out later, because his taste is so good. So I really like PewDiePie, to be honest, because I think he's really down to earth. He's hilarious. Like, his videos always makes me laugh, and he's really wise as well, and I can tell why based on the books that he recommended in his most recent video. So yeah, we're gonna read his books, and I'm just gonna read the 3 books that he recommended the most in the video. And the first one is called SIDDHARTHA, which I also coincidentally read during the summer. So it's by Herman Hesse. And then the second one is called The Stranger by Albert Camus. I hope I don't butcher the French language. And then the third one is called Our Mathematical Universe, My Quest for the Ultimate Nature of Reality by Max Tegmark. And I wrote it down here because that's a long name and I can't remember. So without further ado, let's move on to the book reviews. So this book is super enlightening, and it was written in 1922, which means that it's almost 100 years old, like a century. Can you believe that? Oh, it's so good. So basically it's about a person's journey, so Siddhartha's spiritual journey to find true enlightenment, truth, and also self-discovery, and how he came into contact with this teacher who has achieved all of this already. But in the end, Siddhartha leaves because he believes that true enlightenment and also self-discovery cannot be taught. So the experience of the person who has achieved this state can share their experience, but in order for another person to reach that mental state, they have to walk their own path and journey in order to reach true enlightenment. It also talks about him being distracted on his journey by wealth and also by love making, but when he realized these things don't make him happy, he finally left that place and continued on his journey. Ultimately, he did reach true enlightenment and also find purpose when he listened to the experience of a boatman, and also when Siddhartha reconnected with nature. So his friend who started out on this journey with him stayed with the teacher before, and unfortunately he did not reach true enlightenment, which kind of reinstates the statement that in order to find truth and find yourself, you have to walk your own path and not follow somebody else's path like his friend did. Second book, The Stranger, was written by Albert Camus and it was published in 1942. So the narrator, which is a young man, and also the protagonist, is called Mersault, and he visits his mother's funeral at the beginning of the book when he received a telegram about it. And this book has one of the most impressive or iconic opening lines of all time. So it says that mother died today, or maybe yesterday, I don't know. And I've heard about this line way before I've actually read this book. And this line actually gives us an introduction into the personality of the protagonists, about his indifference and also not having care about anything happening in the real world, which is considered cold-blooded or indifferent in the society. So Marcel had this really interesting outlook on life where he doesn't really care about anything and nothing really matters to him. So even when his lover, Marie, asked him if he loves him, he just replied with, it didn't mean anything, which is very typical of Marcel. And he also then killed a man for no reason. And even his lawyer was abhorred or surprised in a bad way about Marcel's unremorseful behavior and also a lack of motive behind killing a man. And also he then got a magistrate to be angry at him when the magistrate failed to persuade Marcel that God exists, and he called him Mr. Antichrist. He was in trial. He was also attacked. He got like an attack on his personality by the way he acted in his mother's funeral as well, because he was cold-blooded and he didn't remember when his mother's death was, and that really fueled the audience to believe that Marcel was this cold-blooded individual, but cold-blooded monster or something. But he just doesn't really care that much about the world because he has this pretty nihilistic view on living, and he doesn't believe that there has to be a meaning in life. It's just the pure physical world. When he spent his days in prison, it wasn't particularly hard for him because he came to terms with it eventually, but then he only felt happy when the magistrate came again and tried to persuade him about God, and he shouted and berated at him about how God doesn't exist and nothing else exists except for the physical world, which kind of resonate with the philosophical notion of absurdity by Albert Camus, that nothing really exists except for the physical world, and humans have a hard time grasping this notion, and that's why they attempt to create a structure or like a belief or like a reason to make their life seem meaningful. While this belief is sometimes kind of appealing to me when I'm like feeling sad or something, I do find this way of living pretty nihilistic, and it's kind of sad to follow this path when you're going through life. And the description of Marcel in the book of the physical world, or like the weather and also the physical things in the world he sees rather than his internal emotions, is really a breath of fresh air in literature, because the literature we usually read is about authors focusing on the internal emotional surges rather than the external physical world stimulation. And it feels like the author is trying to tell us to be present in the physical world and not be too immersed in our own emotional pulls. This book is quite a good read, to be honest. It's really short. It's around 150 or 60 pages, and I feel like I'm reading quite old literature now, because like this book is from 1942 and SIDDHARTHA is from 1920 something, and it's just like I'm discovering a gem, you know. It never occurred to me that I would be interested in such old literature, except for like, you know, Shakespeare, but it's going good. The third book are Mathematical Universe by Max Tegmark. So this book is a relatively longer one when compared to the previous two books that I've talked about. And this book is also a non-fiction book. It talks about physics, and it talks about the author's work, his student life when doing research on physics, and also about the universe. So the writer writes in such a way that its content is not too hard to grasp, and it's also quite funny, so you don't necessarily have to have like a scientific background to read this book. And I find that this book is not necessarily my type of book because it's a non-fiction book. It's quite technical, and since it's a non-fiction book, there's no storyline, and when I read, I like something with a plot. And it talks about Einstein's theory of relativity. It talks about the universe expanding, which I remember shockingly little of after my A-levels in physics. And this book is not really my cup of tea, but if you're into science, if you're into math, or if you're into physics, then this book is quite a nice fit for you. There, we finished 3 books that PewDiePie recommended, and I really liked the books he recommended, especially The Stranger and SIDDHARTHA. I actually read SIDDHARTHA without his influence, but I only know about like The Stranger from his recommendation, and it's quite a good book. It's quite different from the usual literature that we read, and it's quite a breath of fresh air. And I did rate these books, and you can follow me on my Goodreads account because I have finally made a Goodreads account. If you want to follow, the link is in the description, and also the ratings of the books are also there. But I'll just give you like a brief rating on the books, the 3 books that I mentioned. So for SIDDHARTHA, which I talked about before, I gave it a 5-star review because I really like that, because it makes me think. It also talks about enlightenment and also about finding purpose in life. For The Stranger, I rated it 4 stars because I like the part about the author not giving a damn about emotional stuff, basically just focusing on the physical world, and also how the main character's outlook on life is totally different from most of the characters that I've read about before. But for the last book, A Mathematical Universe, I'd only rated it 2 stars, not because it's a bad book, but because I don't really like reading books that are too technical. For fun, maybe. If you're into science, then maybe you would find this book to be really top-notch or be a 5-star review, but for me, unfortunately, it wasn't really my cup of tea, which is fine because we have different tastes, right? So if you like this video, yeah, like this video and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. I might be doing vlogs more on my studies as well, because I don't really have too much time on my hands to read for fun now, but I'll try to keep up the book content because that's also what I want to do. So I'll see you on the next video. Bye.